The Mariners tie the series with a bunch of home runs. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the series analysis episode of the Seattle Baseline Podcast. My name is Julian Smith, and I'm with Alex Hong. Well, Alex, our prediction was that the Mariners would sweep the Cleveland Guardians. Like we'd go out there, Logan Gilbert shoves for 7 innings, and then we'd win every single game, right? But that didn't happen. But we hit a bunch of home runs and almost no singles. We had the first single of our 2026 in the third game. So I feel like there's a bunch of really high highs and like lows, like very low lows. So Alex, I want to know how you feel about like the way that the Mariners have started. Obviously low sample size, but I'd like to know what you're thinking right now.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't win. I don't know if I predicted a sweep. I think that's what we were hoping for, but we didn't win the series. But I mean, looking at it, the last game was really good. The one on Sunday night, we dominated, like absolutely dominated them, right? That was a lot different though than the other two, especially the first two games. The second game we won 5-1, but we only got 3 hits. And like that game, the reason why we won is because Kirby pitched really well and then we hit those home runs. If it wasn't for that, the offense didn't really do anything, right? Pitching did pretty good and that kind of carried us in that game. So that was little bit of like 2020 three where no, the 2024 where the pitching, like, with them, you can win even if the offense didn't play well. So lots of things to take away. Obviously, a very small sample size, like you said, but there were some trends and some things we did notice, and I think it's a good thing to get into them. Um, Especially because if I told you at this before the series happened that our best guys like Cal Raleigh would have like 2 hits, I think it was what he had. Julio will only have 1 hit. Naylor had 0 hits. Okay, you'd be thinking, oh, we lost every single game. It's over. Like we didn't win anything. But surprisingly to say, the guys we didn't expect they played amazing. Like Luke Rayleigh, and I know we had some hype around Luke Rayleigh going into the season because of how he played in the spring, but obviously, you can have a player play well in the spring and then he's terrible in the regular season. Rayleigh, he played amazing. Canzone played really well too. Brendan Donovan comes to Seattle and it looks like he has no problem with T-Mobile Park at all. It looks like it's his favorite ballpark with the way he was hitting at times. So, they had a lot of players like that play amazing. So it was good to see that. And it's good to see, even though if our best players, like our superstars, didn't play that well, we have a pretty balanced roster, it looks like. We have a roster where the people in the bottom of the lineup, they can pick it up for our top end guys if they can't hit that day for whatever the reason is, and then we could still end up having a chance to win those games. So that was something I was happy for.
Who knew that Brendan Donovan was going to be our second best home run player? Like,
That's for sure too.
what is
Yeah.
it with what is it with these Mariners? So like, I think we talked like before the season started about how Cole Young emerges to the Mariners as like the top prospect for like contact hitting, and like he's gonna be hitting singles and walking all the time. He comes up and he goes and hits 450-foot home runs. And then you've got Brendan Donovan, who in the first at bat of his season goes and hits a home run. And then he goes and hits another home run. Now he has 2 home runs. A guy that's barely had 10 home runs in a season as like his absolute maximum goes and has 2 home runs in the first series. And so
Mhm.
that was crazy to me. A guy that I think gets overlooked because of his low number of games, and it's just one. It's just like half of a game before he got pulled. Victor Robles. Victor Robles gets overlooked, I think, because he's the platoon bat to Luke Rayleigh, who had 3 home runs, and he was playing amazing. He had a home run every single game until the fourth game. And then Victor Robles, he was having a bad spring. And then he was DHing at times. He was clearly injured. I don't know what was going on there, but it seemed like he wasn't at 100% until he had that 5 hit game in spring training. And then he starts trending upwards. Now he has a game where in the 3 at bats that he had before he got swapped out, he has 2 hits, which 2 hits is great. One of them's an infield single. And then the third one, which was he was out from Chase the Lauder, chased the ball down. I mean, no pun intended. This guy dove for the ball. Could have definitely been a hit, and he swiped it away. So this could have been a 3 for 3 night from Victor Robles. And I think that's one of my takeaways is like, even though Julio and Cal and Naylor, they were doing bad, you've got players like Luke Raley and Dom Canzone who are hitting home runs. And then in the shadows, you've got Victor Robles, who's flashing a little bit of that 2024 Victor Robles. I'm excited to see where Victor Robles goes. I think he has. I genuinely think from like the past 2 weeks that Victor Robles could go back to his somewhere near his 2024 or at least somewhere in the middle of a, a much more playable player.
It'd be really nice to have a platoon that works, right? Recently, in the past, sometimes we've been just platooning and we just do it because, we don't feel like the guy should be playing every single day. But if we have a platoon that actually works, where our players are actually hitting well, it's going to be really, really good, right? It's going to feel a lot better. So you make a good point on Robles. He played pretty well in the game he played. Another guy I think that played pretty well was Randy Rosarena. Remember the playoffs kind of struggled a little bit, right, at times in getting hits, but he did pretty well. He walked 5 times. He got on base. He has a 500 on base right now, so he's doing his thing. So I liked what I saw there offensively. And then the other guy you mentioned for a little bit, Cole Young, right? I mean, he didn't have too flashy of like a game per se. He had the home run, he had a double and another single, but I liked what I saw there because you and I talked about this a little earlier before we started recording. It reminded you a little bit of the Cole Young you saw at the good part of last year. Still
Yeah.
strikes out a good amount, and he has time to fix that. Remember, he is very young still, but he was able to do stuff other than strike out. The problem was at the end of last year, he only struck out, and you can't only strike out. Like, it's okay to strike out if you do some other stuff too. So, if he can do his thing, that's gonna be really good as well. That was one of the players we talked about going into the season. It's really important to see how well he does because it's going to be a very big part of the Mariners' success if they have success this year. So, I liked what I saw there for the most part. Obviously, the offensive struggles from some of the players, it might be worth talking about for a little bit, right? Obviously, this is a very small sample size. Cal Raleigh struck out almost every single time he went to the plate. He struck out 10 times, so that wasn't good to see. But he, we have to remember that for Cal Raleigh, he had such an unbelievable, like remarkable year last year that it's not very repeatable, right? 60 home runs, that's not really something a catcher should be doing, and especially with the pretty high average he had as well. Remember, most catchers hit like pretty low 200s and they hit some home runs here or there, right? That's usually how it goes for a lot of these catchers with power. So that's something to keep in mind. But one thing I'm a little concerned about is Julio Rodriguez because it seems that he had one good hit, albeit a very good one, because it was in the ninth inning where we really, really needed it to get into extras. But he didn't play that well overall in general. Besides that, I mean, that's the only time he got, he got a hit. So, do you have any thoughts, Julian, on some of those players I mentioned?
Yeah. First of all, Randy Rosarena, this is exactly the guy that I want to see from Randy Rosarena. He's a 500 on base guy who's going to walk. He's a pesky hitter who's going to hit a home run on you if you try to put one in the strike zone. Like this guy has home run power and they get scared. They're going to pitch around him. Now he's walking. Now he's consistently on base. He's not an Aaron Judge, but he is somebody who's consistently producing. And I think this is the Randy Rosarena that we want to take to the playoffs the whole year. Obviously, he's a bit streaky. He'll have his good times and he'll have his bad times, but if his if his average times are a 200 batting average to a 500 or 400 on base, I'm very happy with that, with a bunch of home runs. And Alex, I want to turn a question to you. You just asked me about how I felt about these players, but one thing about Julio Rodriguez, the news came out that Cleveland was pitching to him with a style of fastballs. It wasn't the slider low and away that they were trying to pitch to him. They literally said, "Hey, we're going to pitch him fastballs, and he's not going to be able to hit them." Clearly, he didn't. So I want to know how you feel about that, because that to me is like that sucks. I'd love to know, like, how do you feel there?
I mean, it is a pretty small sample size, and maybe you could think, oh, maybe Julio was looking for those sliders away and he didn't get as many of them, but I mean, it's just something that it just seems like it's the same old Julio, right? He looks a little lost at the plate. He's not as like sound and proficient as he is at the end of the season, and there's just no way. I have no words for it. I don't know what to say. It's just how it's been for the last like every year basically, except his rookie year that he played. And the interesting thing is he played pretty well in the WBC. It's not like he had nothing, no success in the WBC at all. It's like, okay, well, he's also having no success in the MLB. I'm not exactly sure what the problem is. It's really stumping me here. And I know this is only 4 games, so for all I know, the next series he gets a hit every single at bat or something, right? It's something ridiculous. But yeah, it's something we need to see better from him in general. I'm never ever gonna really be concerned about his defense per se, but the offensive struggles is gonna be really concerning because the strikeouts were, a big problem with him. And he didn't actually have too much of a strikeout issue. Actually, I think the strikeouts were kind of high in this, but it's been worse for Julio in the past. This isn't as bad as it was maybe last year. Last year at the start of the season, I remember it was really, really bad. This one is, well, it's going not too great as well. But I mean, if you could just limit the strikeouts, right? And interesting thing is they weren't even throwing him strikeout pitches and he was striking out. So, it might be actually worse than it is. So it's tough to say on that one. I'd like to it'd be very interested to see how the Yankee series goes, and maybe like a week or two from now we can see, okay, is this actually a problem?
And before we move on to the Yankees series, I want to mention this. We've never seen Julio Rodriguez be good in the first half. That's why it's literally a trendy term in Mariners language to say second half Julio. Like, there's a reason for that. And Cal Raleigh, before he got his torpedo bat last year in the start of the season, wasn't very good. And I think there's obviously a part where the bat plays in there, but at the same time, I think there is a little bit of that like start of the season slump that he was having. And then Josh Naylor, maybe the same thing. This is his first ever time starting at T-Mobile Park. Like, he's been in T-Mobile Park, but this is his first time in the first game of the season he goes to T-Mobile Park. So that's something that I think they would work on. But at the same time, you've got guys like Luke Raley, you've got guys like Victor Robles who are winning you games, who can kind of clear the storm a little bit around you. And that's the team that they wanted to build around Julio Rodriguez and players like Cal Raleigh, who hit 60 home runs last year. So my bigger concern would be if Julio Rodriguez 4 months down the line starts playing horrible. And this is not that concerning to me. In like it feels good to have players that can lift them up. And then at some point, these guys are going to kick into full gear. And now you've got a full team of players that can just like mash home runs. And then you've got a pitching staff that's clearly able to be one of the best pitching staffs in the league. Emerson Hancock goes nine strikeout, six innings, no hitter. Like, you've got players that can really play on this team. And I think we're in a good spot. So now that we know that we are in a good spot, I want to move on to the Yankees, who swept the San Francisco Giants. So, Alex, what do you think of like the Yankees this year? Like what's changed and what's stayed the same, and what do you think is like the key point?
Well, the team for the Yankees, it didn't change too much, right? If you think Yankees, like who's on the Yankees, the players are the same, right? Aaron Judge is still there. Stanton is still there. Josh Chisholm's still there, right? All these players that you usually think of are still there. But um, the Yankees played really well. They played in the very first game and they dominated, and then they pretty much dominated most of the series with the Giants. So they're 3-0 right now. They're feeling pretty good. There's nothing that over the top, I'd say, with their stats, right? It's not like there's one player that went absolutely ballistic, which is the reason why they win. But I think the most important thing the Mariners need to do to win this series is they need to dominate the pitching. I think with the Yankees, their offense is pretty good enough to where they're going to get some hits, right? But we got to really limit the amount of home runs we give up and also that because like for example, Aaron Judge, he only hit two. Now, when I say he only hit two home runs, this is going to sound a little ridiculous, but he only got two hits, and then both of them happened to be home runs. Those home runs are still going to be 2 runs, and in a lot of these games, 2 runs is a big deal, right? I mean, a home run is a big deal because you just score automatically, right? So. It's something I think we got to limit the home run ball, definitely for sure. They have lots of power on that team, a lot of danger. And their pitching staff is pretty good. Um, we are against a bit of a weaker foe in the first game with Ryan Weathers, but the second game they have Max Fried and they have Cam Schlittler, right? In the third game. So these are two pretty good pitchers in the end. We gotta outpitch them, I think, if we want to try to win this game, win this series.
Yeah. And you just mentioned the good pitching staff. Max Fried had no earned runs and gave up 2 hits and 1 walk. That's a good game. And he goes six and third innings. That's good. Cam Schlittler basically did the same thing, but he only goes 5.1. So those two are pitching good. One thing that I want to see the Mariners attack is the fatigue on the Yankees side. They're running on a 4-man rotation this year. Literally, they announced that they were going to go 4-man rotation with Max Fried, Cam Schlittler, Will Warren, and Ryan Weathers, and that's exactly what they're doing. And so this is a team where Ryan Weathers is the only player that hasn't pitched yet, and he's their worst guy. So chances are with the fatigue that they have, Max Fried's not going to be nearly the same guy that he was in the first game. Well, he might be, but chances are he's not. Cam Schlittler, rookie, probably not. Like the Mariners have a pretty good chance with their batting order to go and attack these guys. And Logan Gilbert's going to be just fine going into the game. Luis Castillo hasn't pitched yet. I think the Mariners have a pretty good chance, and I genuinely wonder what the Yankees are thinking going into a 4-man rotation. Like whether they like it's either they literally don't have any other pitchers to bank on in the minor leagues, or they don't want to, or they don't want to get another pitcher. Right? They might think a 4-man rotation suits them best, but I think in terms of what the Mariners are facing, they're facing a 4-man rotation with pitchers that aren't even the caliber of Mariners talent. Ryan Weathers could not be a starter on the Mariners pitching staff. So that's where I am. I think with Giancarlo Stanton playing really well and Aaron Judge hitting 2 home runs. I mean, he didn't play well, but at least he had the 2 runs for them. They're fine, but the Mariners have the edge here. 100%.
Well, with the 4-man rotation, I think they're just doing that temporarily until because I think they had a lot of off days early on. So that was their justification. I don't know what they're gonna do because this is not sustainable for like a month or two. I know they're getting Cole back eventually, and I'm very certain they'll go to a 5-man at that point. But I don't know. We'll see how that goes. The fatigue might not affect them as much because this is the first like few series of the year, right? So I'm not sure if that's gonna have as much of an influence, but I think we just need to outperform, and that fatigue might come in terms of length. If we can just go more innings than them, this is going to be a lot better. We can tax the bullpen, and therefore we can have the advantage there. So I'm liking the starters we have, Castillo, Gilbert, and Kirby. They can all go 6 to 7 innings. This is going to be really good. I think if they go 6 to 7 innings and they don't give up too many runs, obviously if you go like 6 innings but give up 6 runs, it's not very successful start, right? But if they can just go amount of innings and then have pretty efficient, effective pitching, then I think this is going to be pretty well for them. We'll see how Castillo plays. It's going to be interesting because that is his first start of the year. We'll see how he starts this year. Gilbert didn't have too good of a start in the very first game of the year, so I'm hoping to see him bounce back. Kirby played well in the game he first start he had. So if he can continue that going forward, that's gonna be great. So yeah, I mean, so far our pitching was really good outside of maybe the Gilbert start, and it's not like the Gilbert start was that bad. Like I've seen worse Mariner starts in the past. So if our pitching can be even somewhat close to 2024 and not like 2025, this season's going to be a lot more successful. So it'll be interesting to see how the pitching plays because even though Bryce Miller's out, looks like Hancock, he kind of, he's playing really well to start it out. So we might not even be missing Bryce Miller that much. And that would be great, right? Like that would be amazing to see. So yeah, we'll see how things go on that department for sure.
Yeah. And I'm excited to see Victor Robles play a little bit more, especially because Ryan Weathers is a lefty, and what's the other
Freed's a
guy's name?
lefty too, so
Yeah,
we're against two
Freed.
lefties, so he
Yes.
should have two opportunities.
Yeah. And one thing I will say though, with the platoon splits, Dan needs to stop caring that much about platoons. He cares so much about them to the point where now he's putting Ryan Bliss in as the leadoff hitter in a crucial part of the game to take Dom Canzone out against the lefty. Dom Canzone was playing decent against lefties in spring training. There's no reason you have to go to a platoon situation just because you have to for the sake of doing it. He's good. Victor Robles, he's not much of a platoon hitter. Obviously, Luke Raley's the strong, like really good side of the platoon on his left side. So that's one thing. But if you have to take Robles out after Raley is already on the bench, don't take Robles out for a random lefty just to make it a lefty. I think that Victor Robles is not a platoon guy. He's able to go against left and right if need be. Dom Canzone, same thing. I think there's too much of that theory that gets involved with Dan Wilson. His judgment is not really like his judgment is not really observant enough. He's just trying to go off of like computer numbers, which I get. He's a new manager, and I'm not going to knock on him too much because I think he's great in the locker room. But that part of the game, I want to see a little bit more of. That part where he didn't pull Bizzardo for Spire. Quanda's horrible against lefties. Let's pull him out. Like that's the part I'd like to see a little bit more from Dan Wilson, especially because this is his second like real year. I want to see a little bit more.
Yeah, I completely agree with the platoon thing. Like, I understand if we have Robles and then a dominant righty comes up, then yeah, I would probably want either Canzone or Rayleigh to hit. But if we're taking out Rayleigh and putting in a guy like Ryan Bliss, like you said, this is not something that's exciting me. It's just like, okay, like, I would bat righty if Dan Wilson puts me in because he doesn't want Dom Canzone to bat against the lefty, but I'm a righty. Like this is not like you don't do that because Dom Canzone's way better than me. Okay, like I understand taking it out and putting in a good guy, but when he's putting in these mediocre guys who are supposed to be like last resort or defense only or like for base running purposes, right? This is not the type of substitutions we should be doing, right? I understand the benefits of the platoon, I really do, but you can't just look at these people like they're computers. right? You can't like just because oh it's a lefty and we want a righty to bat. Like no, that's not. You want the best guy possible to bat. You don't just want a righty to bat against a lefty. But yeah, I think Julian for the series, right? Pitching is key. Our offense, they played okay, I think, in the series. If we could just keep it up a little bit. They hit a lot of power. If the power goes away, I might be a little concerned about, we didn't do that much for contact. We might have a terrible offensive performance if there was no power, but it's still a small sample size, so I think pitching is the most important though. I think we can get by even if our offense isn't too strong if we have really good pitching. So that's my opinion on how that's gonna go. So if we can win 2 out of 3, that would be good. This is still gonna probably be a good Yankees team, so they're gonna be very hard for a sweep and such. But we definitely want to at least try to win the series. We want to try to have more wins than losses because right now we're tied in that department. The Yankees are undefeated. So those are my thoughts.
Yep. And stop Giancarlo Stanton, who's like totally ripping it apart this year. And we stop Cody Bellinger. We play good against their pitchers, especially Ryan Weathers. Let's go and like mash that guy and burn out their bullpen in the first game. I think we have a good chance of doing that. So I'm excited. I'm really excited to see this series against the Yankees, against a playoff team, like a true, this is the playoff team. So I am very, very excited, and I want to know what you guys are thinking. Do the Mariners sweep the Yankees? Do the Mariners go crazy with the pitching and the Yankees scored 0 runs in the 3 games that they play? Who knows? But I'd love to know your thoughts. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and our beautiful faces on YouTube. Check out our Instagram. And as always, go Mariners.
Go Mariners.